Good evening, everybody. Brian Newbert here from GoldandBlack.com, live in the Galen Center here in Los Angeles, where we just experienced a rap video first. We had to evacuate the building temporarily. By the time I set up outside to do a video out on the street in Los Angeles, they let us back in. Apparently somebody was smoking in a bathroom. It set off a fire alarm. The purge sirens began, and we all went outside. And now we're back in. So this is your GoldandBlack.com rap video from Purdue's harrowing 69-64 win here at the University of Southern California. Thank you to the Purdue Club Hotel for your support. As always, the fire alarms, no one smokes in the bathrooms at the Purdue Club Hotel. They should put that on a business card. Anyway, thank you to them for their support as always. It was kind of fitting imagery here for this arena to have to be evacuated because alarms were sounding. Because Purdue, for 37 minutes, was in a little bit of a state of crisis. USC led this game with about 3 minutes to go, albeit not by very much. It was a game of runs, a possession-to-possession game for the most part. But Purdue faced some stuff here. I mean, they didn't shoot the ball very well. They walked off the floor irate with the officiating. I thought it was typical Big Ten officiating, obviously uneven. Bewildered once again by the fouls always evening up no matter what. But Purdue was livid. Some of its players were just livid about not getting calls and things like that. Braden Smith was as irate as he would be willing to communicate about not getting a foul call on the plays where he hurt his knee. And he was not pulling any punches about his concerns about that knee, bothering him from here on out. Calling him injured might not be appropriate. Calling him hurt probably would be. But he talked pretty openly about that with venom literally coming from his pores. He was so agitated. But, he goes to the locker room for like a minute and a half or whatever it was, and then comes back and just pure adrenaline. Like people can lift cars over their heads allegedly when, their child is stuck under that car. Braden Smith goes to the locker room with a knee injury, and the adrenaline seemed to be pumping so hard that he lifted a car over his head, for the balance of the first half, and really drove that 30-10 Purdue run that it used to go from 9 down to 6 up at halftime. At that point in time, with a de facto home crowd here in the Galen Center, with all the momentum in the world suddenly on your side, Purdue was going to blow USC away in the second half, right? That's how it's supposed to go. That's how it's gone before in such situations. Not so fast, my friend, to quote Lee Corso. This was an atypical night from a shooting perspective. USC made some shots. USC got out in transition, things like that. USC scratched and clawed their way back into this. Basically made this a 3-minute ball game there at the end. And what have we talked about? Purdue is built to close. And I think on a night where a lot of stuff went sideways on them, not the least of which was Oscar Clough's foul trouble. That was, probably the biggest reason that this game played out the way it did. Otherwise, Purdue would have kept rolling offensively, most likely, given its productivity when Oscar Clough was on the floor. Had he been available for, a full allotment of minutes, I guess he played 23 minutes. That's not atypical, for him. But had he not been in foul trouble, maybe that number is, 26. And when you look at Purdue's per-minute productivity, I have no idea what that number is. I'm just making that up. But I think you know what I'm talking about if you watch the game. Purdue was way better offensively with Oscar Clough on the floor. Purdue's was way better, period, with Oscar Clough on the floor. The plus-minus, I think, matters when it's a one or the other type of situation. And I think that's fair to say at center, where Oscar Clough and Daniel Jacobson are basically in a 50-50 minute split. Purdue is plus 21 with Clough, minus 20 with Daniel Jacobson. I think the minus 20 was probably more about Oscar Clough being that good versus Daniel Jacobson not being that good. But obviously they were way better with Clough on the floor. Forward, Jack Benner plus 18, Trey Kaufman-Renn minus 9. Depth, man. This is a nice luxury to have, where when you got two dudes at a couple positions, when one's not right, the other one can step up and be a really, really high-end player for you. So between those two positions, it was Jack Benner and Oscar Clough in this game. But more than anything, it was Braden Smith. Just that super heroic turning into the Incredible Hulk there for a few minutes in the first half. It's like the radioactive spider moment that I talked about after Iowa, when he carried Purdue there for a while. And ideally, Braden Smith wouldn't have to do that. You'll recall at Iowa last year, a couple other games, Trey Kaufman-Renn would get in foul trouble, have to come out, and Braden Smith would just go into full Russell Westbrook mode and carry Purdue either through the end of a first half or for a stretch of minutes that really were pivotal in the grand scheme of things. But Braden Smith's play there after he came back out of the locker room was obviously a really monumental stretch in this game, but not even the most monumental stretch in this game, if you ask me, because I think Jack Benner won this game for Purdue. Obviously, it coming down to the last couple of minutes, Oscar Clough getting all those closer rebounds once again. Braden Smith getting that pick-six steal there in the last minute for what I believe were his only second-half points to that point. Just a really strong close to the game for Purdue. But Purdue was positioned to close it that way because of that stretch from Jack Benner that was, I don't want to say fairy tale-ish, but just really, really, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but surreal, maybe? I don't know. That's not really right. But he makes a three, comes down, he jumps in front of, I believe it was Ezra Asar, who USC was trying to get established in good positions to drive on people. Benner jumps in front of him, steals the ball, gets Purdue an extra possession, comes back down, shot fakes, frees up Trey Kaufman-Renn for an easy roll to the basket, throws him a dart of a pass for a dunk, and then comes back down and takes a charge. I don't remember if Purdue scored off the possession after the charge. I don't think they did. But that was a huge swing in this game. That was a 5-0 Jack Benner run in which he denied USC a pair of possessions. And I thought that situation really buoyed Purdue. Not buoyed as in supported, uplifted, and really was the difference in this game. A lot of things were, obviously, anytime a game is this close, you can point to a million different things that had they gone different, maybe the game turns out different. But I think that stretch from Benter was the connective tissue between the first half outburst and Purdue's final 3 minutes, where they dominated the way they dominated at Alabama in those last couple of minutes too. So kudos to Jack Benner, who really covered up a rough game for Trey Kaufman-Renn, who is better than this. It is just a much better player than this, and just is going through a rut right now. Apparently, Purdue in crunch time got him 3 great touches that he would have scored on last year, at least twice, most likely. Out of the 3, and he's 2 for 8 from the floor. Didn't have anything to show for those 3 possessions that I talked about in a really consequential portion of this game, when he had to play the 5, and you could have seen that coming. The way the game was playing out with Clough on the bench, they were going to have to go to Trey Kaufman-Renn at the 5 at some point to maybe not necessarily demote Daniel Jacobson in that situation, but to not have to have him play the entirety of the game, because you want to have somebody out there who's got some legs to them. But Trey Kaufman-Renn's much better than this, and sooner or later he's going to break out. It just didn't happen tonight when given the opportunity, and Purdue will keep going to him. That's always been Purdue's MO with these guys. When they struggle, they're due for makes. That's long been Matt Painter's message broadly. So they're going to keep going to Trey Kaufman-Renn. He does draw a lot of attention. He will still draw a lot of attention. But it's going to be hard from here on out for Purdue to have a player this good who is not producing from a scoring perspective the way Purdue's accustomed to having Trey Kaufman-Renn produce from a scoring perspective. The good news tonight was Oscar Clough basically stood in for Kaufman-Renn in the big picture of how Purdue is structured offensively. He was the go-to guy in a lot of what he was the guy that USC couldn't account for. He was the guy who was super efficient, put up big numbers, 4 assists, no turnovers. He was Purdue's offensive foundation opposite Braden Smith in this game, whereas it's long been Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn as that foundational tandem. But just not the way you necessarily want to win or have to win, but one that you're damn glad you did, and you're happy to have done it the way you had to do it. This mirrored Iowa State to a certain extent. Purdue shot badly in this game. Some key guys really struggled, and this was on the road, albeit in front of probably as many Purdue fans as would have been in Mackey Arena had the game been played there. But I think that this did mirror, to a certain extent, the Iowa State game, and Purdue couldn't have a chance at the end of that one because they weren't able to find ways to win outside of just outscoring people. When the shots weren't falling, Purdue was falling. Basically, was the takeaway from that game. Tonight, a lot of stuff went sideways for Purdue. USC kept coming. They are very athletic. I thought they played very hard, and you do have to, as much as the story of this game is complicated, if you're blinded by black and gold, as much as it's complicated, I think Purdue finding a way to do this was a pretty big deal. And again, winning Big Ten championships, it's not about winning the marquee games as much as it is getting off an airplane, playing a game, where everything's going in your favor from an environmental perspective, even though you're on the road, having some stuff that could go against you and not letting that beat you. And I think for Purdue to hold serve in games where, stuff goes wrong until stuff, starts to cycle back to everything going well, which I think this team is too good for that to not happen at some point. Nitpicking 9-game winning streaks or 8-game winning streaks, whatever this is now, is code for I'm talking about a really good basketball team. So sometimes when you're this good, the warts get magnified. And, I think there were several on this game for Purdue. To say that is belittling USC, who, played well. Maybe not played well, but played hard, played competitively, gave Purdue some real problems, and was pretty hard to play against. So I do want to remind you all that I write too, and there's written stuff underneath this. I'm not pointing under the desk at something. I'm saying if you're watching this on our site versus YouTube, there is written analysis too, and there's a lot from this game to talk about. So there's going to be new stuff in there if you're watching on YouTube than was discussed here. I'm trying not to just throw everything out there on one platform. So be sure to go check out our coverage at GoldandBlack.com following this game, and I don't think you'll be disappointed in the depth of it and stuff like that. And that's what I got here from the Galen Center here in Los Angeles. This is Brian Newbert from GoldandBlack.com. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, activate your alerts, because we're going to have a lot of video stuff coming through our channel here the next couple days, and you want to get that as soon as possible if you're a glutton for punishment, like many of you seem to be. So Brian Newbert from GoldandBlack.com, thank you for watching, thank you for reading, thank you for listening, and thank you for processing our materials, no matter how much those materials have been smoking in the bathroom. And I'll talk to you guys again all throughout the next couple of days here from LA with our postcard video series, as well as coverage from the UCLA game here in a couple of days up in Westwood. So thank you so much.